the Act of Technology Lagos 6.0, that is AOT 6.0 pre-conversation event. As always, it's always a delight for me to be on call moderating these sessions. And my name is Anthony Anyanwu, coming to you from the stables of Eco Innovation Center. And today we'll be having the third of its series, the 8th Act of Technology Lagos. It's an annual tech conference created by the Ministry of Innovation and Science, and also created by the Eco Innovation Center. And it's always a pleasure to be here because it's really a remarkable initiative that the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation has placed, where they bring leaders, they bring tech enthusiasts, policymakers just around the table, talking about tech and how to make Lagos a smart city, right? And we started the pilot episode last week, Wednesday, where we're joined by the beautiful Motunrayo and we're joined by Adewumi Adeniji, where we spoke about AI and work transformation in the Lagos digital economy. And one keyword that kept on reverberating was collaboration, the importance of everybody coming together to work together to move Lagos forward, to move Lagos to be the hub of technology that it's meant to be. And last week, Saturday, we were joined by not two, but three panelists who did justice to the topic, innovating with AI to build products for the digital future. And we were joined by the beautiful Adedoyin Sola Adeyeye, the product manager for Revent Technologies. We're also joined by Emmanuel Itoje, Enterprise Systems Engineer, Microsoft MVP. And then we were joined also by Samuel Fajo, the co-founder of Epi New AI. And we spoke so much about the relevance of incorporating AI in all we do. And Ade Sola so perfectly puts that AI is here to enable us, right? It's not here to do the job for us, but rather here to enable our work, making it more seamless. Emmanuel spoke so much about automation, and of course, Samuel spoke about the advanced technology in the medical sector and how AI is shaping things. And today we're joined by remarkable speakers once more. We're joined by the beautiful Aderonke Alex Adedipe, managing partner and co-founder of Pave Stones. Jiffy, I'll be reading their bio, but we're also joined by Kingsley Owadara, who is an AI enthusiast and also a mentor for AI Ghana. Before we start, I'd just like to hear like a pointer from each of them. Hi, Aderonke. It's so nice to have you on call. What's going on in your mind at the moment? What are your thoughts for today's meeting? What are your expectations?
Well, I always say that AI has obviously become a buzzword, right?
Yeah.
In this part of the world and the world over. But what really is AI? AI is just, as far as I'm concerned, um, more, right? So AI has always existed, but I do believe that we now need to demystify this concept of AI and try to simplify it to what it truly means. It's technology being used to resolve maybe less traditional problems or more complex problems. And so I hope that this conversation is not just going to be a typical panel, all of us just talking, and at the end of the day, there's really nothing to take home. But I'm sure that Kingsley and I would have quite a number of things to talk about. I see from even the preparations that there's an interconnectivity between the subject matters of discussion. And I hope that whoever has joined this call as well would be able to take away some key and simple information regarding AI, because like I said, AI sounds really complex. It sounds like, oh my God, what is that? It sounds almost scary. And you mentioned that during the last session, one of the participants had suggested that AI has not come to take our job away, but basically to help us simplify our business processes. And I quite agree. Just like just imagine how in fact, I find it very strange that like 20 years ago, there was no such thing as Google. How did we really do our research? When I think back at when I was in secondary school, and they will give us these crazy assignments, loads of assignments. And I start to wonder, how did we really do, some of these things? But of course, now with Google and the rest of them, your work is simplified. If you go on Google now and search, what can I eat for breakfast? You'll find a million and one possible answers. So for me, that really is what AI is. And like I said, I hope that, we're really able to drive home that point today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aderonke. And you just demystified AI, right? Yes, technology used to resolve problems, right? And with that, I also want to thank all our audience for dialing in today. Thank you for joining us. We're so glad to have you on call. And just as how the beautiful Aderonke made mention, if you have any questions in the middle of the conversation, you can just kindly drop your questions on the chat box. We would do well to attend to them. And with that, we'll move to the gentleman in our midst. Kingsley, what are your thoughts regarding today's conversation? Adirunka has told us our expectation, not just speaking over people's head, but actually coming out and discussing and saying how we can implement these things after the discussion, right? So what are your expectations and what are the thoughts going through your mind at the moment?
Thank you very much, Antonia, for the warm welcome and the wonderful introduction. Personally, I am excited to join the call. AI has been, as Aderonke mentioned, has been buzzword. Everybody, AI, and I mean, I've seen many persons just, ask me, now that AI is happening, what exactly can I do with AI? And everybody thinks AI is the answer, right? And as innovators, what many persons are thinking is, what are the next thing that we should build? I mean, what should we build next? And I'm really looking at being able to have, some sincere conversation, about artificial intelligence. And, I am coming from an ethics perspective as an ethicist, and really looking at it, that how exactly do we balance innovation and also balance our humanity, right? So it's not just about innovation, but how do we ensure that we are innovating and the humans are still sane? And that's what I really look at, all around the circle, from all areas to look at it. And I'm looking at it that at the end of the session, viewers, listeners are able to know that AI might not be all your answers, and to those that AI are your answers, you know how to use it to get what you want. Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much, Kingsley. I'm looking forward to starting today's conversation. I think it's a really interesting one. And when you mentioned the scenario of your friend asking you about AI, and like Adirunke rightly said, it's now become a buzzword. What are we going to do about it? And so many people just feel like, oh, AI is for software developers and all of that. Well, some of our audience and those that were watching on YouTube might have had the privilege to see the post about our beautiful panelists today. And it's a shocking that we actually have quite a diverse team today. We have the beautiful Adirunke, who is a legal practitioner actually, and then just as how Kingsley has said, he's an right? I hope I pronounced that right. And with that, I'm just going to read the bio of our speakers. Once again, we're talking about data privacy, we're talking about ethics, and we're talking about AI in the digital economy. And before we dive into today's topic, would always love to give honor to honor is due. I would just take a few minutes to read the bio of our speaker, and we'll start with the beautiful Adirunke, who is the managing partner and co-founder of Pavestones, a full-service corporate and commercial law firm with particular interest in technology and foreign investment. She has extensive experience advising local and foreign firms in the technology ecosystem, including one of the world's largest technology firms on the Nigeria regulatory environment. She has acted in conjunction with both indigenous and international law firms in advising on several commercial transactions. Aderonke was recognized by IFLR 1000, a guide to the world's leading financial law firms, as a highly regarded lawyer in 2023. Congratulations on that feat, Aderonke. Aderonke was also recognized by the Esquire Nigerian Legal Awards as one of the 40 outstanding lawyers under the age of 40 who have distinguished themselves and are clearly setting new standards in the legal sector. Adelunke holds a Bachelor of Law degree from Obafemi Awolowo University and a Master's of Laws degree from George Washington University. She is currently the legal director, non-executive of the Women in Tech Global Movement Nigeria chapter. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the beautiful Adelunke, from whom you've heard firsthand um, from earlier on when she spoke so passionately to us regarding AI and her expectation for today's conversation. And with that, I'm moving to read the bio of the wonderful Kingsley Owadara. He is an AI ethicist. I don't know why that sounds like that's a tongue twister in my mouth. At the Pan-Africa Center for AI Ethics, a dedicated not-for-profit organization committed to fostering the development, deployment, and use of AI in a manner that prioritizes human-centric values. At the heart of his role, he spearheads the initiative to craft and refine ethical AI frameworks, ensuring that artificial intelligence technologies are developed and deployed with a strong emphasis on human values, ethics, and inclusivity. Beyond his contribution to policy development, Kingsley has been an active voice in the AI ethics community, engaging in numerous projects, dialogues, and advocacy efforts. His work focuses on promoting a human-centered approach to AI across its life cycle, from design and training to deployment and its practical application, specifically within the African context. His expertise and insights have not only enriched national conversations, but have also drawn international attention. Kingsley Owadara's work not only amplifies the importance of ethical considerations in AI, but also serves as a beacon for responsible AI development that truly benefits humanity. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we would just dive into today's conversation. I would start with the first set of questions I'll be directing to the beautiful Aderunke. Aderunke, as a legal expert, what do you see as the primary challenges Nigerian businesses face in complying with Nigerian data protection regulations? And there's a B part to this question. How might they effectively address these challenges? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Antonia. I think one of the major considerations is the fact that traditionally, the Nigerian Constitution safeguards our rights to privacy as citizens and as individuals. But irrespective of that fact, as citizens of, I think one of the issues that we have in this part of the world is that we're not accustomed to safeguarding that right. So when you talk about rights to privacy, like I said, which has always been contained in the Constitution, you hardly even see privacy matters, right, being taken to court. You hardly see, in the past 5 to 10 years, prior to NDPR and NDPA and all of that, you would hear about people recording conversations, you would hear about video recordings, we see photographs, images of people being published in the media, even though those conversations were had in private and they're published, right? And guess what? Nobody even talks about it. It's not even an issue. The issue is probably the moral conversation, the morality around the conversation that is being had, or around the content of that particular publication. Now, in 2019, the NDPR came into force, and then subsequently we had the NDPA. Obviously, with the advent of the NDPR and the NDPA, we've now had more, should I say, awareness, or more conversations around, privacy rights, data protection, and all of that. However, even between 2019 and now, what I see has been happening is, whilst some level of awareness, right, there's still the issue of enforcement. And so in all of those years, enforcement has been very thin, almost non-existent. Up until recently, we then heard about cases against Meta and I think Fidelity Bank. And in those instances, I mean, these are really large organizations. These are big organizations. We hear that these organizations have been fined, right? Because obviously there have been data breaches, there has been non-compliance with data protection regulations. What the problem that I also see there is the fact that, number one, these are really large organizations, by the way. What then happens to the smaller organizations? Is it that they are also compliant? What exactly is going on there? Or is it a case of, because these ones are more, they quote and unquote have more financial stability, right? Is that what, I mean, why are we enforcing against these really big guys and then we're overlooking the small ones? So if enforcement is thin, then businesses don't feel compelled, right, to comply with regulation. That's on one hand. On the other hand, as much as there's been some level of awareness around NDPR, around NDPA, and data protection and privacy rights and all of that, I also feel like a lot of businesses don't, I mean, yes, there's now the issue of, every year you must file an audit with the Data Protection Commission, you must submit your audit reports, you must get a compliance mark if you are processing and if you are collecting and or processing the data of Nigeria, the purpose of your. However, are organizations really complying to the extent that they are understanding what the requirements are? They are understanding that there must be legal basis for obtaining some of these data and for processing it? Or is it just a case of, look, NDPA has said, or the commission has said, we must comply, so please, let's look for an audit that will just help us tick all the boxes. You know what I mean? A lot of these organizations are not going through trainings, and even when they are, they're not passing down these trainings to all the other relevant stakeholders. Again, talking about stakeholders, even when businesses are aware, right, of these compliance issues, what about us as individuals? That in law, they always say that ignorance of the law is no excuse. But what about ignorance of your rights? I believe that if you ask the average Nigerian what's your right to privacy, what is your data, what is your right to protection of your data, the average Nigerian cannot answer that question. And when I say the average Nigerian, I'm even still talking about the elites. Now, what about those in the villages? What about the people in the grassroots? How is awareness and information being passed to them to let them know that these rights exist? Now, moving to the courts, I believe that I haven't seen personally, I haven't seen any data, NDPR, or any lawsuits with regards to data privacy being taken to courts in recent times. Maybe there are a few and far in between. I know that there are some organizations who specialize, in this sort of law, public interest law. But I'm not quite sure that I've seen individuals or even class actions regarding data breaches and what have you. So I believe that these are issues, right? These are some of the reasons why, businesses may clients as far as data protection rights are concerned. Now, you asked me a part B of the question, which is what are the possible solutions? Yes. Possible solutions, like I said, are we need to create more awareness not only as far as the businesses are concerned, but also as far as consumers are concerned. Consumers need to be more aware of their rights, how they can enforce the rights under the law, and what remedies are available to them, both under the NDPA, Cybercrime Act, NDPR, Constitution, and all of that. I also think that perhaps just like we have specialized courts that address criminal issues, that address issues of marriages, we also need to have specialized courts as far as technology is concerned, as far as data protection is concerned, as far as the concept of AI is concerned, so that, these courts feel more compelled to make these decisions. They feel more compelled to try to understand what these laws are and human rights can be protected.
Thank you so much, Aderonke, for sharing so passionately. And just to sync that with what you said earlier on when you were speaking about AI, you did mention that AI it's a tool that I'm trying to coil it exactly how you said it, but allow me to paraphrase. Like AI is a technology that is used to resolve, and you were suggesting not your typical problems, right? And you just cited the importance of, okay, hitherto we weren't having some of this, we didn't really have to bother ourselves about data breach and all of that. But now that we are faced with such challenges, I also strongly believe, as you have cited, that we should have courts set up for specifically to address these issues, that people, the court system, I really understand and can address these issues effectively. I think you hit the nail on the head, really. And I'm just going to move forward to asking Kingsley. Kingsley, from an ethical perspective, what are some of the biggest risks in AI that Nigerian businesses should be aware of, and how can they mitigate this risk effectively?
All right, thank you very much, Antonia, for the question. The questions are my two-faced, right? So I'll start with the first segment of the question that, asks, what are the biggest risks in AI that Nigerian businesses should be aware of? There are several risks that artificial intelligence, pose to businesses, and not just in Nigeria, but I would also tailor this down to make it some sort of Nigerian specific, and also to give some examples about them. So I'm also happy that Aderonke was able to speak about privacy. Right? So I'll pick the conversation from where she stopped. Right, privacy violation. Privacy violation when it comes to artificial intelligence can really be grievous. Just imagine you going to the market and everybody's screaming your name. Everybody's screaming your name. And I mean, how would you feel? It looks so absurd going to an unknown place and everybody's screaming your name. I mean, that's what's really happened when data, when there is a data breach. People that should not have access to personal data, information that you hold as very, very unique to yourself, you find people use it. So I see first privacy violation. And why is this even an issue? Many businesses are beginning to adopt generative tools. And when I mean generative tools, I would even bring it up. For instance, ChatGPT. Some use Gemini and other tools. While these tools are really able to help people, get their work done faster, businesses should know that there is limit and an extent to the kind of information that you should impute in those data. Things like personal data, personally identifiable data. For instance, your name or customer's name, customer's phone number, customer's email, customer's location, even yourself, business information, trademarks, trade secrets, financial statements. All these things are really, really they're personal data. And business should know that AI can really, because there's somebody at the back end that have access to all this data, you really cannot tell what the person is capable of doing with your data. So number one is privacy violation. The next thing I would talk about is bias and discrimination. You see everybody talking about bias. I mean, everybody's talking about bias. And this is really a serious matter. And businesses should know that when we refer to bias and discrimination, it is sometimes not even the business that this bias directly impacts. Most times they are end users. Why is the end users? Because sometimes most of these AI tools that are being used are not built in view of local context. So when it comes to the peculiarity of Nigeria, the peculiarity of the Nigerian business wasn't really captured, right, when building this AI tool. So it will be difficult most times for you to use this AI tool. Probably you want to use some tools to automate, probably do credit score. You want to use it for surveillance system, especially when the data has been trained with people with white skin, and then you are saying that probably a security security company, and you deploy some sort of algorithm, probably using any form of APIs, So these things at the end of the day give you results, but these results are biased. And the end result of bias are usually discrimination. So some persons that should really benefit from some things end up not benefiting from it because a tool that a business owner sincerely used as really, as cost such. Also think that another thing I think business owners should also be aware of, while this might not be something that applies to all, I feel that we should also be careful of the issue of job displacement because of AI. But I see that as a very, very strong ethical issue that we really need to look at. Businesses think because of Skippy, we have seen a lot of Skippy movies, and we have been told that artificial intelligence is the solution to all your problems. So businesses should be careful of retrenching all their workers because they think artificial intelligence will do everything. I do not believe that artificial intelligence can do everything. But what you need to be careful of is to be careful of job displacement, unjustly retrenching people that should hold the core of a business in the name of integrating automating things. It is good to automate human oversight in automation. Another thing, and this really happened recently. This happened recently. One of Nigerian influencer, I think Apropos Doctor, he went on his Twitter page some days back, and he went to make a disclaimer that he saw some ads going on, that he never at any point made the video and he never endorsed the product. So there are now times people, there are deepfakes. Deepfakes have existed a long time before now, but artificial intelligence, the fact that artificial intelligence is like a buzzword now, it's now widening, or would I say it is intensifying the impact of deepfakes. So business should know that not all should be careful of deepfakes, believing that all things that are seen are real, because not all things are real. So from misinformation to disinformation to the use of deepfakes, because all these things really have impacts on businesses. So businesses should be aware about it. And I would want to stop here, because there are a lot of ethical the use of artificial intelligence, in businesses, right? Businesses need to also consider the question of, intellectual property. IP narrative AI tool. These tools are built by scraping data, millions of data from the internet, which means that the likelihood that what you think you are receiving as a response there is really not yours. It is somebody's own. And as much as you want to integrate artificial intelligence into what you're doing, be careful not to land yourself in a serious or in a fatal lawsuit from the use of deepfakes. And how can businesses mitigate this risk? I would say that, first of all, businesses mitigating this risk is for you first to believe that artificial intelligence is not really the answer to all questions. It's not all the solution, everything you need, but it could actually lead you to the solution. You should remember that you should always have, there should be a human in the loop in what you're doing. There's a human that is able to, vet what you're getting from a generative AI tool. I also believe that from the point of bias and discrimination, depending on the kind of businesses you are working on. Let's say, for instance, you're working on financial service and you want to build a solution using artificial intelligence to build. You must be careful that the tool you are building is not widening biases or causing discrimination. So in that way, you should be careful to always, check the fairness of your machine. And most times, checking the fairness, there are tools you can use to check fairness, or you could do some form of sampling using different categories of audience, to sample what you're doing, to see the result, to be sure that is this thing really fair, for the purpose of data privacy and data security. It is good to get a DPO, a data protection officer, to be or probably to outsource if you cannot get, so that you are well enlightened on privacy risk, on the kind of businesses you are doing. I'll just take a pause here, so that I'm sure that other things that I want to touch would be touched as the session progresses. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kingsley, for that. That was really, really insightful. And you were even answering some of the questions that I'm about to ask Aderonke. Thank you so much for that. We've seen a lot of misuse of AI in our time. And Aderonke mentioned something earlier on when she was like, your average Nigerian is not even aware of their rights in regarding privacy rights right now. They are not even aware of it. People just see these things as fun. Oh, and you did mention of where AI is used to produce content that seem real, right? And these things are being broadcast on the internet, and people just assume that these things are accurate. So you have to do due diligence, right? You don't just go to AI, garbage in, garbage out. You have to vet every information that you get from whatever AI device that you are utilizing. And with that, I'm going to be asking Adironke my next question. From your experience, and what practical steps can companies take to ensure that their legal practices are transparent and accountable while avoiding legal pitfalls? Again, especially in this side of Nigeria. And this is one of the reasons I'm so thankful to the creators of the Art of Technology Lagos, because we get the opportunity to bring industry experts as yourselves to educate the audience so they better understand the stance of things, understand the tools that we have available and how to effectively use them to moving the economy forward, right? You spoke so much about education. In this part of the country, we just see something is buzzing and we don't really think through. We just jump on it and we see people doing different things, pushing out content, and then they're having issues with plagiarism, copyright issues and all of that. So I'll just leave that to the experts now. I don't care. Kindly address this question for us. Thank you very much.
Okay. I would like to note that for businesses, and I would use startups as a case in point, because for the most part, right, it's the startups that are really using these sorts of technology to provide services and to reach their customers. One thing I've observed about a lot of startups is they don't like to engage lawyers, right? So the presumption is, look, you lawyers, you like trouble. It's only when we have trouble that we come to meet you. And I say, I actually make it a point to try to educate people. I say that my job actually as a lawyer is not to help you resolve your legal issues. Rather, it is to help you prevent legal problems, right? And again, maybe there's the mindset that, oh, lawyers are too expensive, we are bootstrapping, we have not raised. After Series A, when we become, when we become Google and the rest of them, we'll start to consider lawyers, or we'll start to consider engaging legal services. Now, the good thing is, in today's world, there's a lot of flexibility, right? There are a lot of startup lawyers who are able to curate their services, and basically they're amenable. Yeah, they're amenable to your needs, to providing certain needs, and to ensuring that they're at least startup friendly. So that's my first advice. You should always engage a lawyer. There's also the presumption that we're a tech company now. What are we doing? There's no regulation around the kind of services that we're quote and unquote providing. So please, we don't need a lawyer. But guess what? It's not true. When I just started, I remember when my co-founder and I started Pavestones, which was like 6 years ago. Technology had just recently become a thing, quote and unquote, in Nigeria. And there will be a few firms who will say to us, oh, what are the laws that regulate our businesses? Yes, it is true that there is no single regulatory framework for technology. There is no single regulatory framework for AI. However, there are different fragments of law, different aspects of law that touch on your business if you are using AI. So, for example, I think it was Kingsley who mentioned intellectual property. Intellectual property laws have existed since forever, the 1970s, the 1960s, whether or not technology or even AI was in the picture, right? So those regulations have always existed. Even this data privacy that we're talking about, we've spoken, I think earlier in the presentation, I mentioned the Constitution. I also mentioned the Cyber Crimes Act. So there are different fragments, right, of regulation that one way or the other impact your business. So always bear that in mind. Secondly, I always say that, look, as the saying goes, no man is an island. No business is also an island. If you're doing business within the tech ecosystem, try to find out. Sorry, excuse me. So interestingly, I have an AI technology that is controlling the lights in my house. So when the lights have been on for some time, it goes off itself. I guess that's one of the hazards of using AI, right?
No, we're talking about
So yeah, I was
practicality. So
saying
we are
that
seeing it in display right now. So that's fine.
exactly, exactly. So I was saying that obviously, if you're doing business in isolation, you don't know what is happening in the ecosystem. But if in doing business, you know what your competitors are doing, you know what is affecting the business of your competitors, how they're doing things to make sure that they're complying, then of course you are not in isolation. So you are also able to learn, one or two things from them. I also say that again, I believe Kingsley touched on this during his when he was addressing the previous question. At times, the businesses are outsourcing, right? They are outsourcing some of these use cases, so to speak, to developers, to platforms, and what have you. In doing that, right, always make sure that you are dotting your I's and you are crossing your T's. Always make sure that you are reading in between the lines. What are the contractual liabilities? What are the contractual obligations? So if for whatever reason there's a contractual, let's say that there's a breach, right? There's a form of breach, whether it's data privacy or IP or whatever it is, or copyright misuse or whatever. There is a breach, and you have maybe you're using a third party's platform to do business. In that sort of instance, who is liable, right? Is it you as a business owner who is using that platform, or is it the platform that you have engaged to help you provide this technology, so to speak? I think also, obviously, in drafting your contract, you have to make sure that the issue of liability is addressed, right? So I mentioned reading in between the fine lines. Now, your service providers as well, are they, apart from the issue of contractual liability and signing your contract, what are their how are they using AI, right? Are they using AI based on ethical principles, right? So because it's not just you, as far as the ecosystem is concerned, there's you, there's your customer, there's your service provider, who could also be using a third party service provider. So you have to take into consideration all of those. Apart from thinking about regulation, I always say, if internally, right, you try as much as possible to imbibe corporate governance, the principles of corporate governance, I think it will be very easy as a business for you to comply with almost any law or regulation that is affecting your business. So if you have principles, you have a regulatory framework within your business, which is telling your IT how to use data, which is telling your HR how to use the personal data, for example, of your staff, which is telling maybe your publisher, for example, you write articles a lot and your field of research, which is teaching and guiding your publishers on how to obtain data from the internet and how to use it. Things like that are ways through which you can make sure that you're safeguarding and you're safeguarding your business against anti-compliance issues, and also making sure that you're doing things ethically.
Thank you so much, Adironke, for that. And it's actually still dials back to education, right? Educating people on how to go about what they do. And you highlighted the importance of collaboration. It's so remarkable that there's a synergy there's a flow in all the pre-conversations we've had so much. Messi is saying thank you. I didn't care for that. That was insightful. Thank you, Messi. Thank you for giving us your feedback and for letting us know that you're here with us. Thank you, Messi. All right, so I'll be going on to Kingsley. Kingsley, could you give us an example of how an AI system can be designed to minimize bias and to ensure fairness in decision making, particularly in the Nigeria context? I think you were touching this already. You're making some suggestions earlier on regarding this. So if you can just bring it home for us. Over to you, Kingsley. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. If I continue this, if I answer this question, I want us to know that fairness is the philosophical concept, and what is fair to X is not fair to Y. So because I'm trying to relate this to the questions we are asking, because I'm trying to relate to the question we're asking. If, for instance, let's say, for instance, we have a couple of students that come to school late, and the rule is whoever comes to class late probably might serve a particular punishment. And you have a person that came to class at that time, let's say, for instance, a person not physically challenged, right? And you give the person the punishment for getting late to class. All the people that came, you gave them the punishment for getting late to class. Now, to some extent, you are fair, right, for giving everybody an equal punishment. Now, if a person that is physically challenged comes to class at that same time, do you think it should be fair to give the punishment you are giving other persons that are not physically challenged? Now, the same way fairness is a complex, very, very complex concept when it comes to our real world. The same way fairness is also complex when it comes to the use of AI. Let me explain why. Think about the Nigerian business. Every bank now, I refer to financial service. Every financial service now wants to get things done in 5 minutes. In fact, you see some companies will tell you, some financial service will tell you, get loan in 5 minutes, get loan in 10 minutes, get loan in 2 minutes. Now, to get loan in 2 minutes, it means there is no sort of human that is involved in the process. And most of them are actually right, because you could actually, because I've seen people get loan in 5-10 minutes. Just dial your phone, download the app, before you know, you've gotten the loan and you're done. But do you know that when it comes to from the starting of getting a loan and the finishing of getting a loan, it is very, very difficult. I mean, there are underlying things that are processing beneath it. So how do you determine who gets a loan and what kind of loan, the amount of loan they get? How do you determine how long they get to pay this loan? Because these are fairness issues. And to determine this, there are a lot of things that are involved in this. First would be maybe the person's transaction history. You program the algorithm that if X has made deposits of X amount, give the person X amount of loan. Some can go as far as if X is in a particular area let's say, for instance, a person in Lagos Island and a person in probably somewhere at Molete at Ibadan, right? Give this person X amount because, I mean, they could say that this person, there's possibilities that this person is earning more in Lagos and the person in Ibadan is not earning more. But how do you prove that? What if the person living in Ibadan is doing a remote work and is being paid what the person in Lagos is being paid? So what I'm saying is that fairness is very, very difficult. And we must be sure that we are making algorithms such a way that people are getting fair results. Or take, for instance, using AI for healthcare, right? Because we are looking at how do we ensure bias. For the financial aspect now, you see that there are biases there because you are favoring who ought to not be favored. And the person that should get it is not getting it because of some certain either credit score metrics you have gotten, or most of the data you have collected. Because most startups actually, some of them go through some sort of frivolous act of buying data, right? In fact, most of them use tools to check your analytics, check what you have done on your phone, where you have visited, to check all your activities. And based on all the summary of the activity, they're able to give you loan. And you see that there is a serious bias there because most times your interaction with your phone might not be the true representation of who you are. And most times you might even need the loan more, right? So that bias is there. Or do you want to talk about when AI is used for healthcare? These days, there are a lot of tools that are deployed for health, especially machine learning. We are now seeing machine learning for brain tumor, machine learning for detecting early breast cancer. There's machine learning for several things. In fact, there is machine learning that machine learning algorithms are deployed for, to treat, to cure skin disease, and there are several of them. So the question is, how are you sure that the results you are getting from the machine learning, from the results are something that should be applied to a human being? Because most times the data set you are using are not even the data set of the patient. They are not. Most times the data set can even be poisoned along the line. And when I mean data poisoning, there are several things that can be from data poisoning. So we must be really sure that when we are using, either in finance, in banking, in education, is it for education, when you are using artificial intelligence to grade people, how are you sure that, because most times bias can actually creep in at any time. Most times bias could be probably from the developers. Most times the bias could be along the way, probably from, and to be candid, right? We human beings, we are full of bias. And if a human being is the engineer that is developing the artificial intelligence, sometimes that the biasness in you flows to the things you are developing. And we really see this bias really come to place in what they are doing. The whole summary of what I'm saying is that to really be able to be sure that we are minimizing bias, especially in decision making. I'm sure that the NDPA spoke about automated decision making and the things that you should really look at when you are applying automated decision making. But I want to take it to the extreme, right? You must be sure that the data you are using is a data that applies to a specific user, right? Probably you're not using your test and train data, your train data specifically, and not just foreign data that you want to deploy. You also want to be sure that there is a person, which we usually call it human in the loop. There's a person that is verifying these decisions. There's somebody that is verifying. There's also what we call feedback mechanism. If a person thinks, I mean, we have it in court. If you go to the high court, you are not happy with the decision, you can appeal, court of appeal. When you get to appeal, you're not okay, you can appeal to the Supreme Court, right? So people should be given rights to give feedback, and this feedback are implemented. So data that are locally the local context, feedback mechanism, human autonomy. You are also sure that you are auditing your algorithm. I know for now there are no standard regulation in Nigeria to audit algorithm, but there is DPIA, data protection impact assessment. So I think you should, from time to time, do your DPIA to see what is wrong. Sometimes you could even do your impact assessment how is this thing really impacting people? Risk impact assessment. How is this risk impacting people? And what are your quick solutions? What exactly are your responses to all these things? Just the way we have in cybersecurity, where you have quick response to cyber threats, right? When there's data breach, you report to, in fact, NDP has it, there's data breach, you report to data breach, right? So in the case of AI, and you see that there are risks, there are biases, and people are giving feedback, what exactly are you doing? How are you notifying these people that we are sorting it out? These biases are being cured. So there are several things in it, but these few things I think businesses should be able to put all these things together within the scope, depending on the size of their work and within the scope of their work and impact, just like we have in the EU AI Act talking about different kind of risk. So you look at the AI you're deploying, and is it a low risk? Is it a high risk? Is it so you look at what kind of risk and put strategies in place to ensure that these biases that are flowing at every stage of either from your pre-modeling stage, your modeling, your deployment, and even to the use, because most times users are the cause of the bias. Just imagine people using algorithms, let's say for instance ChatGPT, and you're asking these things questions that are X-rated, asking some, you are corrupting it. So biases can creep in at any time. But as the software, I mean, as the AI company, you are sure that you are putting strategies in place. Be sure that this AI is in place and it's not widening digital gap and not causing more discrimination by people using it. I'll stop there.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, we're hearing so passionately from Mr. Kingsley, and we can see why you're an enthusiast. I hope I pronounced it right this time around. Thank you so much for that. Enthusiast, enthusiast. Thank you so much for sharing such profound insight with us. It was really remarkable, right? And just like that, the time is fast spent. What I would like to hear from the beautiful Adirunke before we close today's session. Okay, so Adirunke, I would like to know what, just to add to what Kingsley was sharing with us earlier on, what sorry, pardon me. How do you envision the role of Nigerian law in shaping responsible AI practices, especially around issues like data misuse and algorithmic bias? Thank you.
Okay, I might be addressing this question in a different manner than you would envisage. But recently, I was reading the National AI Strategy, and I can see from that strategy that the focal point of that strategy is to be able to develop a homegrown strategy, which means that we're not just borrowing from developed countries like the UK, the US, as we would typically do as far as regulation is concerned. And I would give an example. I think that in developing some of these regulations, there always needs to be cultural context. And cultural context also involves religious context. It also involves the mindset. So just imagine a world in which I tell my 70-year-old mom, who, by the way, happens to be a professor of education, that my cup of coffee is being prepared by a robot. Do you know what she would tell me? Blood of Jesus. God forbid. Why is your hand paining you? You know, stuff like that. How do we deal with those sort of cultural nuances? And I only gave you an example of my mom, who, like I said, by the way, is a professor. Now, let's now take it to the grassroots. How are we able to pass on this AI message in such a way that they are able to receive it? How are we preaching the message in such a way that it touches home with them? Now, let's go to the lawmakers. I always say that part of our issue in this country is we just blindly issue regulations. Sometimes we are even over-regulated. Sometimes there's one regulator there there's another one there, and they are conflicting with each other. So there needs to be more, should I say, some sort of collaboration, especially when it comes to develop new regulations. So it's not sufficient to just have legislation saying, oh, okay, we want to do something in AI. FCCPC will come, they will do their own. SEC will come, they will do their own. By the way, many of the regulators have, they all have one or two regulations that one way or the other touch on AI. I know that I think it was last year or 2 years ago that SEC released some rules for robot advisory, which talk about consider issues of bias, issues of automated selling and automated answers, automated advice, and things like that. And it requires some level of transparency if you're using a bot to advise people on how to invest in certain financial instruments. So there are all of those different fragments, but they need to be able to work together. Now, going to our National Assembly, how easy is it for the lawmakers who are there to understand the concept of AI, how it affects our day-to-day lives, and what some of these issues are? And I always say that for me, I don't think that just issuing legislation is enough, especially at a stage where legislation not yet been formed, so to speak. I think that businesses and humans like you and I, people like Kingsley, people like AOT, organizations like AOT, lawyers, people who are really using this stuff and who, at least to some, to some extent, developers who understand the nature of this technology and its possible impact and the possible issues are trying to they're trying to be part of policy and legal decision making. Another point, which is what one of what Kingsley had mentioned, is around businesses doing a lot more as far as things like audits is concerned. So you need to constantly audit your data, right? You need to constantly check your algorithm. And I'll give you an example of something interesting that I saw. Your algorithm or your AI is just as good as the data that you feed it, right? Because the information or the results that is given to you is based on the data that it has received. It's not like it generated that result from heaven. Now, I saw a post just this evening on social media where one of these very popular companies, by the way, a child in school was trying to do their homework and asked an AI bot a question. And the AI bot gave a threatening response, one that actually threatened the child's life. That is obviously not what the organization expected to, to be the result if, a consumer comes to your platform to ask that sort of question. But the point is, somebody perhaps within the organization has faltered, has fed the system with that data, and no one has checked, or perhaps somebody has checked and it has been overlooked. So continuous checking, continuous testing within the organizations themselves, not just legislation. And of course, ultimately, I think when we are developing regulations, we need to consider some of these factors. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And with that, I would like to call it a day for today's conversation. Of course, this is all building momentum for the main conference come December 5th at the prestigious Landmark Event Center. December 5th would be hosting the Art of Technology 6.0 conference. Do come. If you've not registered, you can go to the website, register, secure your seat. It's going to be exciting. Look how insightful and educative today's session was, and just imagine how that day would be. Thank you so much, Adivunke. Continuous appraisal, continually checking. Yes, the beautiful Olabimpe has dropped the link. So if you're yet to register, you can just go to the chat box, click on the link, and you'll be redirected to the page to register to secure your seat also. Um, Thank you so much, Adorinke, for such an insightful session. It was really remarkable listening to you. We could see the passion. Thank you so much, Kingsley. We could hear the passion all the way. Like, it's so beautiful to see how passionate you both are regarding the work that you do, and congratulations on the remarkable feat so far. We'll look forward to celebrating you both in a more grander way. Thank you so much. And to our beautiful audience, thank you for logging in. You are the reason we gathered here today. So thank you for making this event worthwhile, for being here, showing your support, listening, and we hope you've learned a lot. Adirunke did say something when we're starting that we didn't just want to gather here to talk. We hope you've been able to take one or two from today's session that you can actually implement and practice, right? And with that, we'll call today's session closed. I would just like to hear one word from our beautiful panelists, and then we'll just draw the curtains. Thank you. So let's start with Kingsley this time around. Kingsley, one parting word from you.
All right. A parting word for me is that just flowing from what Aderoke said, what we need to know is that just as we have in our normal context, garbage in, garbage out, same way in AI, bias in, bias out. All AI engineers are listening to me. Just know that you cannot overlook the role of constant check of your system, and nothing beats it. And to all business owners, just know that AI is not the solution to all your problems. And while using AI, you should be careful to ensure that there is somebody at the back end looking at you. And so that would help you to know what exactly you're imputing in that tool. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bias in, bias out, constant checks. AI is not here to solve your problem. It's here to enable you solve the problem. So at the end of the day, the shovel or the tool is still in your hands to use. And would also like to hear a parting word from Adirunke.
Thank you very much. For me, it's been real. I've learned one of two things myself from Kingsley. And of course, I'm also a business owner. So if there are things that I have not been thinking about prior to now, I have taken away a few things without mentioning what those things are. And I would say that let us use AI responsibly. Thank you.
Use AI responsibly. Thank you so much, Adirunke. And then for startup founders watching this feed or going to restream this session, you can agree with me that it's a wise decision for you to invest in a lawyer, right? Your lawyer knows a lot, right? You've heard of Adirunke, right? So kindly invest in one. And she has said that they are actually flexible solutions for you. So maybe you reach her after the session, and I'm sure she would gladly help you out. So thank you, everybody. Thank you so much, Adirunke, and thank you, Kingsley, for being here today and for guiding us through today's topic. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. And special thanks to the creators of the Art of Technology Lagos. That's it for today. Bye, everybody. See you next week, same time. Bye-bye. Enjoy your weekend. Thank you, everybody. Bye.